Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crystal Core Radio Podcast. My name is Brian, and joining me this week, we've got a great roundtable. Chris is back. Mark is back, having survived a near-death experience. We're glad he is here with us. And we got Umbra joining us on the podcast for the first time. You guys aren't following these gentlemen, and their links are in the description. But we got a lot to dive into, and I want to let Umbra take the stage because let's start with the PS5 Pro price point. Let's start there, because there are so many other knock-on effects. So I want to get your initial reaction to the price, Umbra, and then essentially, what does Xbox do from here, and is this price even a big deal?
Well, I feel like it's a few things with this PS5 Pro. One, I was kind of, and I still am, because we haven't gotten any specifics on the specs just yet. We hear like 45% of this, and the GPU is this, whatever. So it's now looking at a few videos and looking at people who knows better. And I did doubt this, and I want to shout out D Batch, who did say it's closer and akin to a 4070, which I did not believe at first until I looked into more things, and even Digital Foundry pointed out that it was close to that. It's not exactly a 4070, it's more of a 68 XT, which is like 10% less. So it's more or less there. It's almost there. Plus, they have other things like as some of our Xbox friends would so colloquially call it, the pisser. The excuse my language there. I don't mean to sound offensive, but the spectral the equivalent of DLLS or DLSS rather. It's the equivalent of that. So it was possible that it can actually upgrade and the frames per second and such like that too because of it. So it's a lot of good stuff in that PS5 Pro. And so looking into it more, I'm like, okay, I will be honest, I don't think 700 is too much to ask for what they're giving you in that package. I don't like the fact of the $30 for the stand. I think that's ridiculous, but whatever. So, but as far as what would they do for this?
Yeah.
It's a few things, because if this right here is almost an equivalent of a 4070, and I'm sure once we get full details, it won't be quite there. It'll be somewhat like in the range of, way less, I'm guessing, because it's hard to break it down, because these things are, there's so many different, what's the word I want to use here? It's so many different specific parts made just for console, where it's a shared unified thing with the GPU and CPU rather, right? So it's like, how do you can't properly say, oh, it's the equivalent of this GPU. It's not really how it works. Also, the CPU, exactly, and the CPU might bottleneck certain things if it's CPU dependent. So it's a lot of the things there that could mess up that type of comparison. What I would say for Xbox though is if this right here is that, then next gen has to be even crazier. And I would expect, if this is going for 700, we could probably expect this to be the price point for next gen, I'm gonna guess. And so it's going to go more or less out of I guess a subsidized thing from play. At least that's what PlayStation is showing us already. Like, hey, we're going to give you this premium device. Xbox decided not to, right? I guess they're trying to remain more consumer friendly in some ways. This obviously is a niche device for the more hardcore, but I believe Michael Pachter just recently spoke on it, saying that he expects at least 20% of the PS5 sold later this year to be PS5 Pros. I've talked to a bunch of our PlayStation brothers, and they had, because I joked about it, and I used a little debate thing, and I was like, I said, looks like I call them, how do I put this? I call them nicely. I call them our Hooved brothers, because they've adapted the pony name. So I call them our Hooved brothers. And I said our Hooved brothers, and they know I mean no harm by it. And I said, well, it looks like they're going to have to come up with a concept of a plan for the 700. And they just all were like, oh, we don't need that. We got it. And they just started taunting me, and we were just jabbing each other. Nothing crazy. But a lot of them, to my surprise, this is my surprise. I actually called this on the Xbox Factor. I said that I think a lot of them would surprise Xbox guys that they will buy this. I think, honestly, Sony guys are more loyal to a fault, where they're like, we're going to get this device. So I think it's going to do well. But I think because of that, and it having to do well, I think Microsoft is going to be put in a position where they're going to have to give an even stronger device. And it's kind of crazy to say it that way, because we're sure they're already working on the R&D of it now. Right. It's not like they're just like, oh, well, let's start now and try
Right.
a new device. They're already clearly working on it. But that
Shooting
doesn't
for 2026 as well, which is like
right.
2 years. You thinking about like in 2 years, the next Xbox is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
There, that would again leapfrog, I would assume, the PS5 Pro. If not, for anybody who's also keeping score in this, prices are going to vary. If you look up a price of a 4070 right now, that's roughly around $700. I'm sure you could probably find cheaper versions of it. So in terms of just a graphics card comparison, because I've seen a lot of people bring up at this point, just build a PC. Like at what point do you see the price shift?
We've seen this argument. We saw this argument with PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 got ripped apart for its initial price tag because it had the dual chipset on launch, and everybody said they were being greedy. And then as the financials came out, they were losing money. It wasn't greed; it was just expensive to make. Like it wasn't, and it it got memed on at the time, and they had to kind of release it with the emulation, which then felt strapped together. So then they're like, about 25% of your library is no longer going to work, and we're like, which 25%? They're like, we don't know. And so it was chaos back then. So this feels no different. The advantage here is that being in the PS5 ecosystem, as opposed to like when they came out and announced the PS5, they said, and we're proud to say this is different than a PS4. Screw your backwards compat. We know you guys love that your whole library expires. The advantage here is this is a choice. Like it's you can buy the Pro if it's better, but it's not like, oh, well, now there's going to be games that come out that are only going to run on the Pro. All these PS5 titles are going to run on both. And I would think in the US, probably only half of households even have a 4K TV. And if like many of kind of the dads in the room or moms, you may not be playing on the family room TV. So even if you have a 4K TV in the household, the TV in my office is not the quality of the TV in the living room. And this is the one that has my PlayStation 5 hooked up.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to upgrade to a Pro because that's not a 4K TV.
That's a good point. And I think because I've always cared looking into that data, there's some general data on that from Statistia, I think it's called. But as of 2021, it was around 48 to 50% of households in the US had a 4K TV. So back when the PS4 Pro came out, it was niche, right? And then when I think about the performance and efficient gains you get with the PS5 Pro, HDMI 2.1 compatibility to get higher frame rate and all of that, I think the required technology accessories you need to really get your juice out of the PS5 Pro are smaller just in terms of market saturation. So this might even be more niche because of that. And I imagine Sony realizes that, but I get why a lot of gamers that are console gamers see the increase in the Xbox Series X with the additional SSD and start to go, where do we go now? Right. As just the economy and macro factors, inflation get worse, real wage income growth doesn't really go along with it. So it's just it's a hard part for gamers to be in.
Yeah, I'm not going to upgrade this TV.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to upgrade the Pro, and I'm not going to upgrade the Pro because I'm not going to upgrade the TV because buying one console is expensive.
Yeah.
To replace a working console with an upgraded console is just not something that's in my budget.
Yeah.
I don't think that's weird. Like, I don't think that makes me alone in the room.
My PS5 is I really like it. It works great. I've been playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake on that. That was originally made for the PS4. So I was like, this game is great on the PS5. The only logical thing that I could see is like if I was wanting to have another one. We do have, 2 TVs in this house.
Sure.
If I was like, oh, let me go ahead and put this up here, I would think that would be something where I would consider it. The other side of this argument and this coin when it comes to the price that I've also seen brought up heavily as the disk drive is not a part of the base package. So if you think of the PS5 base device at $500 with a disk drive, this is $700 without the disk drive with tax and all of that. That means if you are a physical media gamer today, that's an $800 price point for you. And I do think this also signals, just like we've seen with the Xbox, that the next generation, whatever Microsoft's working on, whatever the PS6 is that it's going to be this optional drive at best. What do you think about that, Umbra?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if it'll necessarily be an optional drive. We're hearing so many rumors, and I had I hate to say it like this because the people are like, oh, he's claiming an insider too. But I did know somebody who was telling me things, and one of the things that was shared to us was that Microsoft might be, go with the handheld option as the second option. And also, which intrigues me, because I've moved on to kind of the PC. I still have the consoles, I have the PS5 and Xbox, but depending on how things look next gen, it might be my last time. And I hate to say that, but I feel no need to go backward when I have a far more powerful PC now, right? But if they actually have a handheld and they're going to have Steam, allegedly, I can see PlayStation going that direction too. So I can also, and somebody made a great point in one of these chats, and I'll shout him out, Slow-Mo Backslap. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. Slow-Mo Backslap. He podcasts with Gaming Forte, Ginger, and he made a great point in one of the chats where he mentioned that this could be also a move by Sony to kind of get their fan base ready for the next gen, possibly of their games going day and date. In other words, this is more PC equivalent. You're going to kind of get that, that melding of both worlds. And I think this could be that, because my thing is, if Sony goes day and date, I have no need for a PC anymore, right? They might go 6 months out, maybe a year. However, it seems like they're getting lesser and lesser to me.
I'm going to float an idea for you to kind of mull over, because I'd like to get Chris and Mark's thought as well as the digital future that I can get the writings on the wall. But when it comes to day and date, I've also argued that since Sony is working on the ability for people to stream their PlayStation games to PC, that is an app that is being worked on. That also somewhat satisfies the day and date. Like, if I don't need a physical piece of your hardware to play your games, I think that is also something that is a factor. And whether they decide to go day and date with their single player games, because they've already committed to day and date with the games as service games, which makes sense to me.
Right.
The single player games, if all of a sudden, like Astrobot right now, for example, it's on PlayStation 5. If I get the ability that I could boot up that game without having a PlayStation 5 in my house, well, regardless if it's running native or not, like that's how I'm viewing it. But Chris or Mark,
I would argue they should bring that to PC, because we were hearing tales about, or stories that suppose that it's not doing so well right now selling. It should be, because Astrobot is damn good, but it's not doing it well sales wise. So that possibly should be one that they say, hey, let's reevaluate and put this to PC, in my honest opinion.
Yeah. I mean, listen, AAA games are getting more and more expensive. It takes more time. Sony feels it just as much as any other major publisher or hardware manufacturer. They're going to evaluate options, right? And you're right, Umbra, that time to PC has gotten less and less in terms of, months you have to wait for. So I won't be surprised if it's, I think Sony's smart in the sense that they realize there is some cannibalization if we do day and date on PS Plus and PS5 hardware, right? So there could also be some things they're thinking through. What if we do day and date with our hardware and PC? How does that affect things? They're trying to evaluate that, and they're kind of going slower than Microsoft. And Microsoft is this, I think they're pushing their frontier a lot, but they also have the capital to take a lot of the bumps and bruises that come with that too. But subsequently, we'll see that capital has to go to other places within the company too, which hurts gaming. But I see that happening. You mentioned Xbox doing like a piece of hardware and a portable device. I still wonder, as we see overall diminishing returns on gaming from a fidelity perspective, right? The costs are increasing, but in terms of the, and maybe we'll get to another point where games now look like Nintendo games back in the day. But I do think as we're hitting these limits and diminishing returns, do we start to see a PlayStation or a Microsoft device that is borrowing the strategy of Nintendo, with systems on the chips getting better and better, DLSS getting better and better, to where you offer a piece of hardware that is one of those take with you or stay at home devices that can give you a 4K experience in a few years if it's plugged into your TV and all that stuff too. I wonder what the future of hardware is going to look like, because there's just so many variables at play. And I also wonder if Sony and Microsoft even fully realize too, like, one can make a decision that fails, one can make a decision that wins, and we can see another person leave the market. So
no, that's a good point. And that That is worth thinking. I mean, because where do they go? You're right. It's a diminishing return at this point. Like the games look so crazy now. I was playing Black Myth Wukong, which is currently my game of the year. It looks insane on PC. I mean, it looks insane on PS5 too, to be fair. Unreal Engine, by the way, I'm an Unreal Engine fanboy. You guys might hear me simping for it, but it is gorgeous, man, and it plays flawlessly on my PC, at least. Not all, because it's not optimized well. But that said, how much further can you go than that? I see Space Marine 2, and I'm like, how much further can you go than that? The Swarm engine, like, it looks insane already, right? I can imagine a coalition when they get on Unreal for the next Gears is going to look insane. So, like, you're right. How far can we go? Hellblade 2, how far can we go? I saw that, melted my eyeballs out of my head. So, like, how far can we go? I think they're going to have to go back to the drawing board in a way to kind of, I wouldn't say go to the crash of back to the Nintendo for the first Nintendo necessarily visually, but I do get what you mean there. And I think they're going to have to diversify as far as the games they offer. And also too, because of the cost, like you mentioned, of AAA gaming. So it's probably best in their best interest to diversify and get more AA and things like that out there too, for cost effectiveness. But just to say, on the whole handheld thing or portable device, that's the current rumor for Microsoft. We might even see it at the VGAs this year, possibly. I would think to go to your question, Ginge, like as far as what Microsoft can do, that right there, I think will go a long way for the fan base if they do indeed have a handheld. I'm an owner of a ROG Ally. I'm sure some of you gentlemen have a Steam Deck or something like that.
I've got a Steam Deck and I've got a Logitech G Cloud, and it's I put more hours in gaming on, like, those devices have made me father, of the year. I'm also not abandoning my kids, and I'm still able to play video games, and we get to hang out and do different things like that. In my life currently just need a level of flexibility. I just need the ability to not have, and the thing is right now, I would say out of all of the console and PC markets, cloud is the highest priority for me, because it gives me that level of flexibility. And I need to go set up my PlayStation 5. I need to move it into here because this is where we want to be playing it. No, I think I'm going to pass. I think I'm just going to click this button and all of a sudden I'm in this game and I'm not worrying about it. So that's where I keep moving to. I know that's not the case for everybody, but just like the story I always go back to, I was like, hey, Chris was like crushing me in Horizon, in Forza Horizon. He's getting all the roads. I was like, okay, I got 30 minutes. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna play some Horizon. And I boot up the game and it has a 25-minute update. And I was like, I literally only had 30 minutes to play. I guess I'm not playing this. And it was really frustrating. I don't have that problem anymore. That problem has been solved by playing via xCloud or GeForce Now. And so I find that that's something I gravitate to, where I'm actually evaluating my purchasing of games if I'm able to stream them now, as opposed to where it's like, I do have the local power. I do have a 4090. I have a machine that makes these games look incredible. And that's great. But that's also a very limited part of my game time.
That's what's putting pressure on Sony is already across this conversation. We have seen people in the chat, and we've seen people since the announcement talk about the price. And so for a lot of people, it's what is the expense of getting into gaming? As we see inflation continue to rise, as we see housing costs continue to be a struggle in pretty much every market here in the US, like it's hard. Cost is real. And, TVs, to just get a TV, are fairly affordable. When you talk about $700 consoles and it doesn't come with a $30 stand, and then maybe your router doesn't support enough speed, and then you do have to upgrade your TV, it can get to where it could be a whole house payment to upgrade to this. And so cost is one thing that these companies are having to think of. And I think Xbox has done, trying to lean into xCloud and lean into Game Pass. They're leaning into being this low cost entry to gaming. But they get kind of mocked by the PS5 Pro early adopters as being lower fidelity. And that's just part of it. But then there's Brian talking about the convenience of it. Okay, so we have this convenience thing. So you've got this whole other section of gamers who say, I can come up with the cost. Like, as long as I have enough advance notice, I can save up the money, I can pay the cost. What I need to know is that it's going to be day and date on the platform I can play on, that it's going to work from the get-go. And then you have other people there. And so, like, we all have different priorities in gaming. And so I think this PS5 Pro conversation is mostly just brought up that, like, I'm seeing people on the internet shouting at each other, but they both just want different things.
Yeah.
So they're like trying to convince the other person, but they just want something different from gaming. So when you say like you like cloud, somebody somewhere just had like an aneurysm because they're like, how dare you say cloud? I live in rural wherever, and I have trouble even getting enough internet, and I have unlimited money for hardware. It's like, okay, well then you're in a different spot. Like that's okay.
Yeah, I'm never advocating for less options. You know, we gotta get rid of graphics cards, local processing, no more. No, not at all. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, I like that point about there being preferences, right? I also think your preferences are shaped by your ability to consume these items too. And when I look at the data on just the gaming market in general, as it's broken up between console, PC, and mobile, there's a reason why, like in the West, it's kind of a saturated, stagnant market overall, versus where gaming's really growing is in APAC and other regions like that. And it's mobile that's driving it. And when you think about that, it's like, okay, well, these phones are cheaper to buy a TV and a device and games, right? And also, the games on phones, they might not look great, but they're usually fun. Some of them are highly addictive.
Good enough.
Yeah. And
I feel like 10 generations ago, they were like, hey, now with more pixels and colors than the human eye can detect.
Yeah, right.
Where do we go from here?
But I also think it brings up this conversation though too, is like how important is fidelity? Like you could have a game like Space Marine 2, which I've been playing and having a blast with. It's amazing. I'm playing that on an 4K OLED, right? It's phenomenal. But if it wasn't a fun game, eventually it looking pretty, I'd be like, I'm done with it. And I still think a lot of this comes back to how you sustain the gaming market is focusing on good game design that's also easily accessible to the people you're trying to play your games with. And I think cost is a factor too. So I do wonder, as AAA gets more expensive and as we do have these more niche products that they're investing a lot of R&D in, hopefully they're not selling the PS5 Pro at a loss. I can't imagine they are. I get why it costs as much as it does. I just wonder too, if we're going to get like I don't want to say a recession in the market or like a crash, but there's going to be a reaction and a stabilization. And again, going back to the 4K TV point, install base, that's why the Nintendo Switch didn't bother with any of those features. Back in 2017, less than 40% of US consumers had a 4K TV, right? Whatever this next piece of hardware has, probably 4K. There's a reason they're finally doing it now. And the rumors on that is that device is going to target around $400. So if we see a PS6 and an Xbox whatever at $700 and Nintendo's at $400, which is more expensive than the Switch launch point, but still.
But what it has to be though. Like the thing in my mind when I sit down and look at this is like I've been running a lot of numbers. When we just bring up inflation as just a key metric, there's a couple of factors that are impacting the game industry greatly, namely in how games are financed, because most of these companies don't want to give up their capital, so they finance them. Well, now that cost has gone up 5x plus. So it's like that's why all of a sudden you're like, oh man, we got to make drastic changes. The industry is in this tectonic shift. The other fact is inflation. I think people are like upset about the $700 PS5 Pro, and I'm not judging you if you're upset. I get it. Like maybe that's a little bit of a sticker shock. We all have like challenging aspects of life. I drive an old truck for a reason because that's what I can afford to drive. But that being said, is that I think I paid more for my Sega Saturn. Like if you account for inflation, I bought a Sega Saturn as a kid, and I was like, that was like a $400 machine. It was so pricey at the time. I think that is actually higher priced than, or at least on par with a PS5 Pro. So it's like, I know I've spent an insane amount of money. It just doesn't like feel like it. There's some kind of mental barrier and break when it comes to console gaming. And that's why I do agree. I think Nintendo might be in the best position. Their entire strategy was like, we'll just let Microsoft and Sony beat themselves up. We're over here just making games, y'all. And then it's like, oh yeah, it turns out you're selling. They might, with the Switch, actually break the highest sell console. They might surpass the PS2.
I hope they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I hope they do too.
But to go to that point too, though, like this is my thinking on it, because one of the questions were, where do they go now? Like, would it be better just to get a PC? Now for PlayStation, it's tricky because they're not going day and date yet. So is anybody going to be now? PC guys, PCMR, they'll wait. This is nothing to them. they will wait a year or 2 or 3. That doesn't mean anything to them. I'm not quite a PCMR yet. I'm half and half. I'm half in and half out, right? So I don't want to wait a year or 2 or whatever. I'm just going to have to play on PlayStation. But my thing is, I have no need for a Pro, right? Because I don't have the 4090, but I have a 4080 Super, and I got an Xbox, whatever. It's kind of like, do I need to do that? I don't. So, like, for me, I have no need for it. Plus, if you actually like do the math on it and what you can buy as far as parts and things like that, you can build a fairly powerful PC, a 4070 even bound PC for about $1,000 that outdoes this PS5 Pro. So if somebody was asking me, should I get this versus the PC, I would probably move them toward the PC just because you can do so much more. The cost of that is going to eventually even out because you pointed out, for instance, with the hard drive, I mean, not the hard drive, the add-on disk drive and things like that, plus paying for PS Plus and things of that nature, or whatever, for online or whatever, versus having free online with PC. I mean, up front, you're going to pay more for the PC, but long term, you're gonna get so much more out of it than you would a single thing. And that will be my thing about it. I'm just interested in seeing where they're going to go for next gen, because that to me is just like, I have no real idea. I have no real idea how they're going to tackle it.
You know, I also wonder, like, again, I get why the cost is the cost. And I agree with those points, Umbra. Like, I have a PC, but at the same time, I'm at this point where I'm always working on my PC, so I still like to play on my couch at night. Thankfully, my kid's still very young, and my wife goes to bed early, so I have time to play on that nice big TV. But I still wonder, you know, one of the sales pitch with the PS4 Pro, which I'm an early adopter, I admit that. So when the PS4 Pro was announced, I was like, I want to get that. I didn't even know I had a 4K TV. It was just like the TV we bought because it broke real quick, and it was during a Penguins playoff game. And I was like, sure, let's go. We got to go to the store. But the sales pitch was 4K sampling, right? 4K super sampling, not true 4K, but that's what the PS4 Pro could do, right? Here, the sales pitch functionality wise is you no longer really have to make that decision between performance and quality, which I switch back and forth. I always play performance mode. Knowing developers, you know, working with developers with my team at DevHour and just knowing how developers operate, if you don't force them to optimize their games and you just give them more power, we're going to see PS5 Pro enhanced games that still force you to make that decision. I just feel like that sales pitch where you're increasing this, because the CPU didn't even really change in the PS5 Pro, right? I don't think it did. I could be wrong there, so correct me.
No, you're correct.
Yes.
I think it's a slight up clock. I think they said of it, like small 10% up.
Yeah, so is that going to be your bottleneck? That's the bottleneck on my computer. Like,
yeah, it's one of
my CPU is by far my bottleneck.
Yeah. So you're not going to really be able to see a giant increase in FPS performance, but at the same time, like, I just imagine the sales pitch on this generation, you know, it's going to be 60 frames and 4K, which isn't necessarily true because Unreal Engine 5 comes out. That's more resource intensive, right? Developers are doing more ray tracing, all that stuff. They're going to just push it and be like, all right, can we get it out? Is it running okay? Maybe it's good at 30. Let's just do it and deal with the throwback of that. So I just won't be surprised when that's the case too. So again, I get why the cost is the cost, but there's still that trade-off of, are we really going to see the functionality come to life as well?
There's always going to be buyers that want consoles. If for no other reason, parents that want to try gaming with their kids but don't know anything about gaming and their kids ask for a console, that is a thing I can go to the store and buy. Does it come with it? The box says what comes in it. Building my PC was a wildly different journey, and I hand built it myself, and that's a totally different animal. And it's and it's choose your own adventure. You can't just go to any company and be like, oh, I buy power or whatever Asmongold's thing is, or whatever, you know, all these different companies. You could buy the wrong thing. You absolutely could, or you could have bad build quality, you know, or you could have just bad luck. Like Ginger paid top dollar for top components and had a miserable experience when the PC first arrived.
And completely different. So like you mentioned, Asmongold Starforge systems, not sponsored or in any way. The Starforge system that I purchased by far was the experience that I expected when I got the Origin PC that I did, you know, pre-lockdown. And hands down, I was like, this has been worth every penny. and I literally, like, from day one, I mean, I can't hear the daggum thing, and it is so awesome. Anyway,
you were having a miserable experience, and I spent $1,200 and it just runs. I hadn't built a PC since high school, and I had a buddy like FaceTiming with me because this was in the stay-at-home times. So he was like, hold the camera over there, and he was like talking me through it, and it worked fine. But that's not for all parents. So like consoles will have a place if for no other reason. It's just nice, and everything can be integrated. Everything can just work right out of the gate. So like, I don't know that we're going to see consoles fade quite yet. I think that ease of access is something people will desire until we have cloud step up to the point where they can buy like a Roku stick that just plugs into their TV.
And that's what Xbox has right now. You can buy an Amazon Fire TV stick and you can start playing Xbox games. Smart TVs now that are also rolling out with like GeForce Now and those apps, xCloud, GeForce Now. I'm assuming that will, I wonder how long it will take PlayStation to also put that app out there. And that goes back to my original point. Well, if I don't physically need your hardware anymore, like, isn't it all just day and date regardless? So like at that point, like I can access it as a part of my service. Now, you guys also brought up an interesting kind of point when it comes to PC. Sasano is echoing this in chat. The cost of the TV, cost of the monitors. Those are things that people don't mentally block and
cheaper though.
They have gotten cheaper, but I think it's essentially that those devices are already like, you already have it. Like, you're going to have a TV. It's not like you're like, I've never seen a TV before and I want to get into gaming. And now it's like, okay, I need to go purchase that. There are people who spend a lot of money on these upgraded TVs to take advantage of their new console. And for them, man, way to crush it, guys. You're doing great out there. But yeah, like I don't factor in the cost of a TV into the console because the TV is multi-purpose. And this also kind of brings me to a point I want to get y'all's thoughts on. At what point do we see this single-use device? That's what a PlayStation is. It is single, like it has its games. It's a focused device. Start to really struggle against multi-purpose devices like the Steam Deck, which is comparable in price to a Pro, like the Rogue Ally, which is comparable. But those things do more. Like, where is that line for you guys?
I saw people make that point whenever the PS5 Pro price was announced about how, no one complained about the Steam Deck when it was announced, or the ROG Ally, excuse me. And I think, to your point, like, as myself as a consumer, right, there is something in my mind when I see something that's kind of different and new. Like, portable PCs have always been very, very, very expensive, and they've never been very user friendly. So the idea of getting a portable PC device for $600 to $700, there's something in the psychology of my mind that says I get that as it's early and new versus this console that we've had consoles, right? And to your point, everyone's going to want to have consoles. Parents are going to buy them, but they're not probably going to buy that $700 one first. They're going to buy the cheaper one, right? I just think there's more features and functionality that makes me okay with dealing with the price of a Steam Deck or Nintendo Switch or, any of those other devices. And I think consumers probably feel a similar way. If I could choose between this or that, I get more use cases out of this.
I would love to see a PS5 Lite launch alongside this and just guarantee 1080p, 60 frames, hard drive the size of 3 Call of Duties, which is what, 25 terabytes.
And bring on all the Xbox Series S haters, just like, no, you're ruining gaming.
And just go, okay, and this one's at $299. Like they're, like you don't have to buy the top premium. I think that's where the complaint is. It's like when Apple announced their like $40,000 commercial monitor, and people were like, well, that's not going to work on my kitchen table. It's like, that's not what it's for. Like, it wasn't for you. It was for the engineer at like Pixar. And we all got a hold of the slide deck and freaked out. Like it.
Yeah.
So I would love to see a more approachable price point come alongside this. And maybe that's what the PS5 can do. Maybe they're going to be able to start lowering the price on the PS5 and let the PS5 Pro kind of stay where it's at. Just call it a Series S.
That was my thinking too, that they would
digital only.
Oh Lord. That they would probably lower the price for the PS5, the standard, the base maybe for the holidays. But you know, as far as like the comparison between the handhelds and this, the simple answer is, and somebody actually mentioned it in the chat, where the Steam library, they get to take that wherever. And that's the beauty I've come to find with PC and having a handheld, is that I can play it wherever. It's a beautiful thing. Now, that is not to say that Sony doesn't have a mobile version like the Portal, for instance, that they could use in that case. But who wants to? I'm not. Much prefer, especially after I've been spoiled by the ROG Ally, to be able to play my games locally. I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to stream it. I don't want to have to do any of that. And I've done all that with PlayStation on the ROG Ally, and it worked fairly well, actually. I played a lot of Final Fantasy 16 that way through it. But I would much prefer to have the option of having it locally stored into that the HD or whatever, the SSD. So I do like that option, that because of PC gaming and the handhelds of their nature, you get to do all of that. Plus, you get to emulate. You get to do so much more than you can with a console. So that there is the advantage there for me.
Now, there's another advantage that is within the games themselves. So obviously enhanced for PS5 Pro being a label. So Umbra, what is the first Xbox game that's going to also have that label attached to it?
You're being messy.
and how is that not going to then just be bait for the console wars?
Oh, that was messy right there, Ginger. How can I answer this without being canceled by the community? Let's see. Oh man. Well, first and foremost, the next Forza is going to be let me stop. Starfield. No, you know what? I think the first Xbox game that might get that is probably Indiana Jones. Yep. Look, see, El Nini thinks it too. It's probably Indiana Jones, and that's because it's not an Xbox title itself. It's a Disney product, so I feel like that might get that extra boost because of it. I can see them maybe going a little further out for it. I would hate to be Microsoft if they actually do give any of their first-party titles better performance options on the PlayStation Pro versus the Xbox Series X. I would hate to be them.
If Forza Horizon comes out and it looks better on my PlayStation 5, but I'm going to play it on my Xbox anyway. They sit right next to each other in the shelf. I'm going to play it on Xbox because it's an Xbox game. I'm going to be upset if I'm supposed to give Xbox money on my Sony controller. I don't know why it bothers me. I'm normally not like an exclusive guy, but it just I wouldn't play Gran Turismo on my Xbox. Like it just,
I get it. It's like playing
Halo. It's like eating ice cream on a plate. Like I just don't do it. It works.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Don't do it.
Or it's like playing I guess Kratos on Xbox or something like that, right? God of War or something like that on Xbox, or Halo, for instance, on PlayStation. It's sacrilegious. We can't have this, So yeah, I feel like Microsoft is in a bit of a bind because they've been a bit too kumbaya when it comes to the game sharing. And that's why a lot of this is hitting the community so hard, where a lot of them are pushing back on the notion of the PlayStation Pro. Some of it might be a bit of anger, some of it might be jealousy, some of it might be because there's some downplaying going on for sure. But that's part of the game of the console wars. It gets to that, right? Like I said, I just came to the realization after paying attention to actual people who know what they're talking about that this thing is going to be pretty powerful, and it's going to be worth, I think, the 700 that they're actually asking. Again, though, to that question, Ginger, if Microsoft dares to put a better pro version of an Xbox game, I think they just better keep it to the base standard. If they have a 60 frames per second option, for instance, that they don't have on Xbox,
just make it worse. They get like a Sony exclusive, costume or something.
Oh, there you go.
That would be brutal. Because that is more of a Sony move to do those kind of things.
Absolutely. One extra loadout in Call of Duty. It's just a poke. And they're like, well, it's only for the first year. It's an annualized franchise. It was just a jab for no reason.
It's Microsoft's in such an interesting position, and they're only facing more and more push to be more profitable. So I think we've all felt like their position's been clear for years now. I feel like, Brian, when you and I have talked about it, we've never been surprised when they're bringing games over to PlayStation 5.
Well, I've publicly argued that this is what's happening and been called like every name under the book, and then it's like, and then they're like, now they just call me Nostradamus, and I was like, to me, I'm like, I'm just reading the tea leaves, and I'm like, how is this not going in this direction? Anyway, go ahead.
No, Phil Spencer has said things a couple years back where I'm like, oh, I see where that's going. And it's not like we're like genius. It's just like, I don't know, if you spend enough time working in technology, sitting in corporate speak and all that, you kind of go, oh, I realize
the decision. Keep too much close to the chest either. Like, people made fun of him on letting the devs make some of their own announcements the other day. And it's like, he tells us everything, guys.
Yeah. And so I think you're going to see more and more games going to PlayStation 5. I think I won't be surprised if there are those types of enhancements. Probably not within the first year, but like Doom's a game that I played on my PS4 Pro and it played great. 2016 Doom. I imagine there's going to be a lot of incentive to make that game play even better on your PS5 Pro as well, Doom the Dark Ages. And the other thing is too, like Microsoft Gaming is finally making them money, but Microsoft, the company, is spending buckets of cash on AI. They spent $14 billion in the first quarter of 2024 alone, just on R&D for AI technology, creating servers and develop. And the thing about AI, for all these big companies, they don't know how they're going to really get an ROI on it yet. They're not sure. So now, previously, Xbox Gaming getting subsidized from, Big Daddy Microsoft needs to do more in its cost cutting to help the whole entire company subsidize the money they're spending on R&D. Sony doesn't have that problem. Sony's not trying to invent their own AI platform. Microsoft is, and all these other companies are. So I think Microsoft's going to be more and more of a publisher moving forward. And again, I'm not surprised by that, and I'm not upset about it. I love Xbox, but it's just I think that's in 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have a true Xbox console per se, if it's some other type of device.
I will buy the next Xbox day and date if it does support Steam and where it's like, these are my games. I want to put this on the TV, because one of the things about the PCMR conversation is that, in respect to PC gamers, I feel like I'm a PC gamer now, but not everybody has that desire. And nor will they, or should they. And no amount of matter of like, you can have a budget PC to do these things. Does somebody want to start to have to worry about drivers, and will this run my game, and will this do this? Sometimes I just want to pick and play and pick up a game, and that's where
it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Gaming people would make fun of me for my PC because it's only a $1,200 PC. Mm-hmm. But if you're buying a $300 console and you're dodging a $100 Apple TV, and you're going to use it to power your Netflix and your Macs and all that stuff in there, and it can sit in there, and maybe it's one of the ones that has a disk drive and it can play your DVDs and stuff for the kids. Like, it can wear a lot of hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and your 1,000 whatever it is dollar PC is still more powerful than these current consoles, just to be clear. But
I'm perfectly happy with it. It does plenty. It does plenty.
Yeah. But as far as it goes with this, again, it's so much dependent on how they're going to handle it. If they, like you said, Ginger, if they're going to actually have Steam availability for these next gen consoles, man, I think they're pushing everybody more toward that kind of, in my opinion, it feels like there's more of a push to kind of unify PC with console experience, in my opinion.
And Microsoft's been moving that since they brought in Play Anywhere. And that's what, for me, I was like, once they announced Play Anywhere, I was like, oh, there's no reason for me to even own their console unless I want to. And I honestly felt good about that. I was like, this is more like, I don't feel like I am artificially incentivized to buy into this ecosystem. I want to buy into it because it's so easy. I can be playing on my PC. I can go just right over the TV. My game's already synced up and ready to go. I buy the game once. They're not asking me for multiple money like Nintendo does, but Nintendo's already got me in their back pocket. There's nothing I can do, guys. Send we need an intervention for me. But yeah, like there's all these things that I'm like, yeah, I'm in on this. I'm excited about this. I'm looking forward to seeing what Xbox brings out next, because the question that I had, not about the price of the PS5 Pro, that just seems like that was I was like, that seems like the logical price point for this device, with considering they also raised the price of the PS5, especially in Japan, because you have real world problems that are causing all of these spikes in price. But I'm like, how long until the PS6 though? Because if I'm having a good experience, with my PS5, how long are they asking me to wait to the PS6? If they're saying 4 years, well, then maybe maybe I'll upgrade, if I feel like I want to have both performance and fidelity mode turned on at the same time. But if it's 2 years, like where Microsoft's at, like, it's like, I might pocket that money and just decide to invest in the new Xbox platform with that flexibility if they bring it.
There's two things I think about when you say that. So one, this is the problem for me with PlayStation. A lot of their plans revolve around the black hole games now, right? They want to do the live service gas titles. I had a podcast where I said out of gas, because I think that's going to be a dying genre in a way. It's like there's only a few mainstays that landed already and kind of have everybody's attention. You got the Fortnites, you got the Apexes, maybe you have the Call of Duties, those types. So I don't think it's room. The old saying, there's not enough room in this town for the both of us. I don't think it's enough room, because we were hearing so much negativity around Marathon, for instance. It's in development hell. I think Sony set themselves up for a fail with that. I don't think Fair Games is going to do well. So when I think about that, I think, what is PlayStation even going to offer us to play on the Pro outside of older games? That's the problem I have too. Because what are they going to give us? What new game, what brand new spanking shining game are they going to give us to say, this is why you need the Pro? And I think it would have to be a single player, their style, of course, single player over the shoulder adventure. And I'm sure, like, maybe, what's that name of that game with the mail delivery, the UPS delivery simulator? Death Stranding 2 might be one of them, I guess. I would, or maybe the Venom. I don't know. But thank you, Dave. Thank you.
I think one game that could do it would be Bloodborne 2 and a remaster of Bloodborne. People would.
Oh yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, that would be, the PC folks would be heartbroken unless it was like also coming to PC, because that's what I see a lot of. They're like, guys, we got it running in the simulator, and it's like it's looking incredible, and it's like it's only a couple of weeks away. I'm like, interesting. As I've gotten more into Souls like this year, I was like, there's this sub community that's like, I haven't played Bloodborne.
God of War always takes over the headlines for a little bit of time. There's always like a brief moment where it's like, we're going to play this game forever. We don't, but there is a moment. It has a moment where it feels like it's top of the world. The question is, like, how well will it run things like Light No Fire? Like, how do we put other great titles that are not exclusive? So it's like the exclusive got you to buy in, but it's also going to do a really great job with all the titles that allow you to say, well, then I'm not having to invest in my PC, or I'm not having to buy an Xbox. Like, my PlayStation can kind of just step up when it's not playing exclusives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, to add to that too, and I want to ask you guys this question, I guess, because I don't want to state it, but I could pawn it off to you and I don't get canceled. So would you say, what would you guys say to PlayStation possibly having this price point because they feel a lack of competition on Xbox side? Do you think there's any truth to that?
What they did with PlayStation 3.
Yeah,
that's what they did
with PlayStation 2. They got real big for their britches, and they said, we can get anything we ask from these stupid gamers. And then they were wrong.
Work two jobs.
And Xbox got an opportunity. And PlayStation 5 has just utterly kicked the pants out of Xbox. And all of a sudden, PlayStation's like, we can do no wrong. Challenge accepted.
There is that need for healthy competition to mitigate hubris, right? And I can't see PlayStation making that mistake twice. I think, but
the other factor though is digital libraries, though, Mark. Like, one of the things it is, people in chat today talk about, like, oh man, I don't want to migrate my library from PlayStation to PC. I don't want to go rebuy those games, and that's why the Steam Deck was so valuable, because it's like, oh, these are already your games.
Yep.
So the real question though is that Microsoft could, in a way, be kind of teeing them up to come in with the next generation and say, your Steam games, your Epic games, you can stream your games. Oh yeah, you heard the PlayStation 5 cloud? Like, all right, we support that. Like, go and just play your games. And then all of a sudden you're like, but I have now a higher fidelity experience over here. I'm playing most, if not all, those games because Sony doesn't. They're not all the games are there on PC yet. I can wait. Like I'm okay with waiting, and I think we've seen more and more gamers fall into the like, I will wait. I will wait for this game to come out. Final Fantasy 16 will be a really good test of that. Yeah. How many people were willing to wait for that game to come to PC versus, getting it day and date on PS5.
What hurts it is the group of people that all said they would wait. They would have passed a lie detector. They meant it. And then attention fades. And by the time it finally releases on PlayStation, they have been convinced otherwise. They're putting their money and their time somewhere else. I think it's like phones. There was a time where it was really hard to change phone carriers. It was a huge pain. And you had to question was like, did your phone have like the right SIM card size and all that? And as that faded, I think a lot of us are a lot less loyal to our phone carrier now. But we are still loyal to our phone ecosystem. I'm not just going to switch from Apple to Android. But what like PlayStation, Xbox need to think about is, but once I do, I'm not going back. Like if I ever drop Apple, it will be because the frustration has gotten so high that, and it'll be my whole family will switch and we will switch all at once. And I'm not going back. Yeah. So like if Xbox, if Steam, if these places where I keep my library, if they ever do lose me to go dump my time and my money into an ecosystem I don't currently do a lot with, like PlayStation, that's because I'm making a more permanent move.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I literally just switched from Android to Apple on Monday.
A hard switch.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. So I started with Apple. I went back and forth throughout my years of smartphones being alive, and there's reasons I just wanted to be back in Apple. What I will say to that point, and Brian's point about digital libraries, Phil Spencer said we lost the worst generation to lose with the Xbox One, PS4 generation, because that's when everyone built their digital libraries. So you get locked in. You buy a lot of digital PlayStation games, you might not want to pay $800 for the PlayStation 6, but you got a lot of incentives to do that versus maybe going to the Xbox device and losing that entire digital library that only exists when you have a piece of PlayStation hardware. The thing about going from Google to Apple is for me, it's photos and videos. That's my library, right? And there's a real easy way you just go to this Google site, sign in your Apple ID, and it migrates everything over. And you're just done. You're not going to see that between PlayStation and Xbox with digital libraries. You're just not. Now, going back to cloud, what I love about the NVIDIA cloud service, you have a game on Steam, you could play it on this cloud service. You don't have to buy it here.
Yeah.
That's
the type of
compatibility libraries are huge.
Exactly.
And that's where
because of Steam sales, like we all have like a pile of shame. We have games that you like sort your games by time played, and there is a whole page of games that have 0 minutes. Like, I don't know how they get in there. There's a bundle. It's half off. It's just, I buy crap I don't use.
Speaking of games, we've now come to the part of the show. We got 20 questions. If anybody needs to dip out, that's perfectly fine. I've got a game for those of you who are new and have never seen a game of 20 questions. The panel here gets to ask any yes or no question and whittling it down to find out which game we've got selected. Chat can play along. I will not highlight any chat comments until these guys have either won or lost the game itself. And I do like to give out a Golden Stadia virtual controller award to whoever gets the game correctly in chat as well. So feel free to play along with that. We've got the game. We also go off of the Wikipedia for official answers. And so with all that being said, let's turn it over to Mark for the first question since you're back on the podcast after the little break.
I'm still so burned by the Mario Lost in Time version.
This one might be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll see.
Okay. I feel like I like to talk with the team before I ask the question, but I think a good question to differentiate it is, was it a game that came out in the 90s?
It was not.
There we go.
So let me establish the rules here.
Yeah,
we can confer as a team.
Yep.
Yes.
And we can say, of course, we can't name the title or else we lose right then and there, I'm guessing.
I think we give a little flexibility, especially for new players.
Okay.
Like, oh no, like let's not, like, my goal. I want y'all to win because I think it's fun, but I also like to give you guys a challenge. So we'll see.
It's funny because we played it sometimes in the spaces on Twitter. I like to think I've gotten pretty good at it. But okay, so team. Mark and Chris. Let's see. Okay, so you've asked, was it a 90s title already?
Yeah.
You said no to that. I'm gonna guess it's in the 2000s. Now which 2000s is the problem? What would you think, Chris? What's your thinking?
I would pick a date and say before or after, because the problem is, like, if it's 87, he's got us.
Yeah,
so,
true.
So I would start trying to like pick a line before and after. 90s was a big swath of games. You could also come at it from like a platform standpoint or a publisher, and start trying to whittle down genre. So like we could definitely lean into date, but
we can also ask if it's made Japanese made or American made, or like which company.
Those have helped us in the past.
East or West publisher.
Yeah, East or Western developer, exactly. Oh, we can ask what type of game too, right?
Yeah, it's all yes or no, but yeah, you can start to try to whittle things down, and you know, knowing that it's possibly likely after 2000. You know, was it a physical copy release? You know, like the 90s is more helpful because you've got cartridges, you've got CDs, so you've got ways to whittle things down. So this makes it harder that it's not in the 90s.
Okay. Was the character a mascot for their platform? Well-known one. Okay, yeah. No.
Well-known or not well-known? I'll give you one question. No to both those.
Okay.
So we know it's not Gex.
Right. Yeah. It's not Crash. It's not Mario. That eliminates a lot, actually. So
was
Sonic? It's not.
Was
Sonic.
It published in the West?
Like published?
Is it published? Is it a Western publisher?
No. I was like, it's in the West, but I was like,
Thank you.
Good. I'm gonna classify that. Yeah.
Yep. No, you almost got me. I've been watching those Genie shorts.
Did it come out between January 1st, 2000 and January 1st, 2011?
No.
It's gonna be an Atari game, Chris. You were
Yeah, well, now we have 2012 until now. Chris, is on you.
Is it an RPG?
I would say yes. The official Wikipedia does not list RPG.
So it's multiple genres. Multiple genres, probably action, platformer. I'm guessing RPG elements. That's what it sounds like.
Interestingly enough, and then this actually surprised me, the official genre is just listing one genre. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
One genre. So, okay. So it's just listing it as RPG then?
No, it's not. RPG is not listed on this, but I would say that this is an absolute RPG. You know, okay. Like, I mean, this isn't. I'm surprised there's not a comma RPG in the genre. There's just from this wiki for this. It is what it is. I'm like, all right, I just want to give you that information because I was like, I'm going to push back on that Wikipedia entry. That's at 5. There are 5 questions.
That's fair of you, yeah, because we might have at the end like, wait a minute, that's RPG.
Yeah, exactly. You threw me off.
Us. Yeah.
No tricks today.
Right. So I'm gonna guess maybe it's an action RPG, action adventure RPG, probably something in the line of a Zelda or something like that. That's what I'm kind of thinking. Although you did say there's no mascot, and I think Link would be considered a mascot.
I would consider Link a mascot, and I would have so that
Okay. Is the title one of the best games ever sold? One of the highest, I guess, selling games, or better, maybe let me frame it better. Is the title one of the best selling series of all time?
I'm gonna say no, but I'm gonna give you guys a bit of context. Well received, sold a lot, but I couldn't classify it as like one of these insanely, like like I would say, it's not Elden Ring. To give you guys an example, it's
Right.
like it's not like this, like boom, like so. But it has sold well, and you have heard of it. I guarantee you.
Okay. Starting to sound a bit like Final Fantasy in a way, but I'm like, nah, that's too easy.
It's not an RPG.
Yeah.
So it would have to be like a turn-based something where that genre would show up and it wouldn't list as an RPG. But like a core numbered, I would think all the core numbered Final Fantasies would have RPG listed.
Yeah.
Now he did mention that it is in the West, so I'm gonna guess
Not a Western.
It's an Eastern publisher.
It's here in the United. You can play
Right.
today.
Yeah.
But it is not. It is it's not a
Eastern
Western
developed.
publisher.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So it sounds like it's a Japanese made game that's available over here. That's what it sounds like. So I'm going to guess it's a Japanese dev, maybe a Capcom. So we can kind of look to which publisher to kind of narrow down the game.
Now you could play like Guess Who style rules if we want to try to whittle it down. Instead of guessing a publisher and using a whole question, we could like list 3 publishers. That way we're tossing a wider net.
I like that. Actually, we cheated like that one time.
That's how you win. That's how you win. Guess Who?
That's how you win.
Is try to.
Let's do that. Let's name some developers.
You want to do like Nintendo,
Sega?
Capcom, Sega, and Square?
Sega, Square, Capcom, Nintendo. Oh, that's tough. That sounds like it makes it harder, if anything. Actually,
Yeah. Maybe just go with 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about Sega, Nintendo, and Sony?
Okay.
That way it's the big platforms.
Yeah.
Was it Sega, Sony, or Nintendo as the publisher?
No.
Okay.
You got Konami. You have
Capcom, Konami,
That's helpful because I would have just that. I'm glad it was a no.
and Bandai Namco as well. They become more of a prominent publisher.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Over the last decade or so. Bandai Namco published the Souls games. I'm pretty sure, at least some of them. Speaking of that, Souls games, they have RPG in the genre on Wikipedia. I thought of Yakuza. Yakuza has role-playing game.
True. Yeah. Yakuza does have RPG elements in it. Yeah.
Is it my question? Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we know it's not Sony, Nintendo, or Sega. We know that at this point it could be a game that came out in 1989 or before, or 2010 and ahead. So I didn't go great with that strategy. Gosh darn it. Do you guys have any ideas for a question here? I'm trying to think. What question are we on? What number? 7?
We have
7. Y'all have
used
7
7 and we've gotten no to all of them.
Yeah.
So like at some point we've got to get a pasta into the room.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask like the gender of the character. To
Yeah.
kind of help and
Is it
assist.
do you think it'd be a single player or a multiplayer game?
Yeah, let's go with that. Is it a single player or a multiplayer game?
So which one are you?
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry. Yes or no? Just by the way, what's the name of it? Is it a single player game?
I would say it is not an exclusively single player game, but single player game is listed on the Wikipedia.
So single and multiplayer. Okay.
See, I feel like shooters back in the day used to have both more often. Now they're usually, but I don't know of any Japanese published shooters. I can't think of any other genre.
I'm gonna give y'all guys a little handout. Y'all are stuck on Japanese. There are other Eastern publishers.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put that out there.
So it's from Russia.
Good point. with love.
Ooh. We get all the way to 20, and you're like, "What the hell is this game?"
So what's some other Eastern developers that may not be Japanese? CD Projekt Red.
Are they?
Well, no, CDX.
I would
consider
consider.
Western.
I would
Never
consider
mind.
those Western. Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. That was wrong. Who else would be considered Eastern?
Yeah,
over
I'm
there?
not talking about like Eastern as of directional to me. Yeah,
Right.
truly Eastern.
So it could be possibly Korea, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to think through.
Could be Chinese. Could be something like a Black Myth Wukong, for instance, with game science, and that does have RPG elements in it.
And it does say action RPG though on the Wikipedia. It seems.
Okay. Okay, that dismisses that one.
Yeah.
Eastern devs.
I'd probably point you into still locking down the time frame.
Okay. So we eliminated you eliminate Mark. You eliminated from 2000 to 2011.
Yeah, 2000 to 2010.
Well, 1990 to.
I got 20 years out of there. 1990 to 2010, basically.
Let's do smaller increments for this one because I feel like if I do 10 years, I'm like, yeah, it's in there. It's probably. Is it anywhere from 2000 and what was a big heyday for?
We know it's not between 2000 and 2010.
Right.
I have trouble even finding. I mean,
here's a question though: how many multiplayer games really existed back in the 80s?
Not many. I mean, Mario Brothers were like 89, I think.
We know it wasn't them, and it had a single player game. And I would assume, I don't know, I'm only born in 89, but I would assume if it was a game that had a single player aspect, it would probably more or less just focus on that versus having both back in the day. Like Pong didn't have a single player story. Those games back then tended to be a bit simple.
Right. No RPG elements either in Pong.
That's the future, though.
I always role played as the ball in Pong.
I'm getting tossed around in here. Okay, maybe we can narrow it to the genre. You did say it had a multiplayer in it, and it's single player as well. So it has a single player campaign and this multiplayer option. Was this title released on the Nintendo 64?
No, it was not.
Okay. That's actually a pretty good one because that 64 had a bunch of multiplayer titles like that. And I was starting to lean toward GoldenEye for a minute.
Was GoldenEye not a Western publisher?
Yeah, rare.
Yeah, that's true. But it also still eliminates the Nintendo 64.
When was N64?
99, I believe. 97.
And then when did we drop support?
Remember when they dropped support?
GameCube came out 2001, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But we did eliminate the 90s, right?
Yeah, 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
Was it released after 2015?
Yes.
There we go.
10 questions.
Great.
Okay, so between 2015 and now, which is only 9 years, it was successful.
It was 97, by the way, for the 64.
Okay. Trying to think. So I think calling out Korea or China, Chinese game developers really haven't become a thing, except I want to say more recently, and when it comes to publishing in the West.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a shorter tail.
Oh wait, I just had an epiphany almost. You know what? It's not my turn to ask, but something tells me the game is more modern than anything else. Actually, now that I'm thinking on it.
would you consider this to be? So when I say this question, I'm including the term or the time frame, Brian. But would you consider this to be a current gen game?
Yes, I would.
Okay. That narrows it down a lot.
Yeah, and that goes into what I was thinking. Eastern Dev, single player slash.
I'm gonna put one light correction. Eastern Publisher.
Publish.
Y'all have not locked down the dev.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Okay.
Might be.
Maybe
Sure,
the one
might
and the
not.
same. I just don't want to sit here and have y'all be saying something that like have not
Sure.
been confirmed.
We could clarify that with the question, but I can't think of a lot of Western developers that have only been published through Eastern publishers, but could be wrong unless wait. No, never mind. Fortnite doesn't have a single player mode, does it?
All right.
I think Umbra. Is Umbra up? Or no?
So let me think. So okay. Because I felt it was more modern, which I was going to. Eastern, thinking of the Eastern publisher / developer, maybe. I'm leaning. Okay, how can I ask this? Was this developed, or better yet, is the game considered a free-to-play game?
I need to check. I would say no, but I would hate to be like, oh. No, it is not a free play.
Okay. No, that eliminates that thought.
We're at 11 or 12 questions.
That was we're at 11, so you're at 12 now.
I might as well say it. I was leaning toward the first Descendant.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Man, it'd be really nice to know publisher.
Yeah, we gotta kind of narrow down the publisher. It seems like.
Was it published from Korea?
It was not.
13. This is question number 14.
That's 10 publishing companies out of the East gone. So that's
what companies are those?
Player Unknown, NCSoft,
Ooh,
Netmarble, Nexon, Kakao Games,
NetEase, I think. No, NetEase is also China.
NetEase China, right?
Yeah. Where's Bandai Namco located?
Japan.
Okay, that makes sense. This is a good one. So we know it has single player with multiplayer aspects. It's a current gen game. Was it available on all? Oh no, this is a tough one because I kind of want to ask about exclusivity.
Do you think it's exclusive?
Well, it's tough to phrase that, right? Because if I say like, was it exclusive to some consoles? That could be
Like
PC
platform exclusive on launch.
Yeah. Was there any platform exclusivity to it during launch?
Yes.
Okay, we got an answer.
Really good question.
Okay.
And I'll even give you a hint. And there's still platform exclusivity. Console exclusivity.
I mean,
is Astrobot multiplayer? Could he have pulled that far forward?
No. There's competitive like time attack things you can do with friends, but you're not playing with each other. It's just scores that you can.
Super Mario Wonder kind of has that asynchronous multiplayer as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could try to pick a platform. I mean, the whole conversation's been about PlayStation today. We could see if it's PlayStation exclusive.
Someone said Demon Souls, but I think Demon Souls was published by Sony, so that would take that out of the water.
Yeah, because you already specifically asked Sony as the publisher.
Okay.
We're at 15 now, right?
14. This will be.
Oh,
14.
Okay.
He's pretty sure we know it.
Yeah. I'd be surprised.
Who made Persona 5?
Atlas, which is the developer who published.
Wasn't that platform exclusive?
No, that's on Xbox now, I think.
Okay.
PlayStation 4, and it wasn't technically a current gen game because it released on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. I guess that was 2017.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I don't know why I thought it was more recent than that.
It remastered, and then coming to Xbox would put that right back in your wheelhouse.
I think Poland is part of Europe, so that's Western.
Yeah.
Like I think that's where that line. I think
that's how I think it's used in a colloquial sense, right?
Right. It's most likely a PS5 exclusive, but not for sure.
I would agree.
So are there any PS5 exclusives that are Eastern published?
Well, I can think of Foam Stars, but that's multiplayer only. I don't think there's a single player element of Foam Stars. And there's no RPG element, right? So that's it. But a RPG that is also multiplayer, has RPG-like elements that's also multiplayer. I would wonder if it's some type of like MMO light type game.
I was thinking that. Then I started thinking, if it is indeed Sony and a first-party Sony game, the one that makes the most sense is Ghost of Tsushima. Single-player story, has multiplayer with the Legends, made by Western dev, but published by Eastern.
Y'all have ruled out Sony as the publisher, so
that's right.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Is there multiplayer in Genshin Impact?
There is multiplayer in Genshin Impact,
but on the Wikipedia genre it says action role playing, so we could rule that out.
Well, no, he said it. It would say role playing there.
He says he thinks it does have RPG elements, but it doesn't actually. Listed. Is that right, Brian?
I would classify this as an RPG with like it's a genre.
But it doesn't say role playing.
But on this Wikipedia, to my shock, it doesn't say RPG. To the point where I think we would all agree once y'all figure out this game or I reveal it, you're gonna be like, yeah.
Yeah. And Genshin's free to play too, so that would rule that out. Any of those Genshin universe games.
Death Stranding is asynchronous. Who published that? Is that Sony published?
Sony published again. Kojima developed, Sony published. Whose turn is it?
Anybody really?
Do you have a good question?
No. I'm just making sure people aren't waiting for me because I'm just still thinking through. So we know it was current gen. We know it's single player and multiplayer features, which can mean a lot of things. We know that it's not published by Sony, but we think it's most likely a Sony game that's exclusive on that console still to this day, but also available on PC, and it sold well. And people talked about it.
And are still talking about it.
Gosh darn it. Apparently still not us.
Wow.
At least in my circles, I see people talking about it.
Well, you play very specific games,
I
and I am
do.
a part of your circle.
What does he play specifically, Mark?
I mean, a
Give
lot
us
of MMOs. Talks a lot about it.
Yeah.
And action-oriented games. He's very big on Destiny, Umbra.
I used to be.
Yeah.
He used to be hard on Destiny. Now I'm just like, ah.
Destiny actually crossed my mind as one of the
But
options.
Sony published.
Yeah, that was the
Now.
only thing.
Now
Yeah.
Sony published. That'd be an interesting one in that question, but yeah.
Yeah, there'd have to be no and yes, both and.
Mhm.
So people are still talking about
Could
it.
be a Tencent owned game.
It's true.
That's a big umbrella of games.
I was going to say that's possibly true for just in case in general. Yeah, they have so many titles they own or co-own or have some percentage.
Y'all want to
But
ask
like-
that question?
I'm just looking at a lot of the big Tencent games though, and I'm not seeing any of them that have single player. Like League of Legends doesn't have single player. PUBG,
Right. Not single player.
Hatsune Miku Dreamy Ventures. I don't know about that one. Sorry,
to be clear, Ginger, you did say that it's modern, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like current gen and all
Current
that.
gen. Current
Okay.
gen. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe PS or Xbox Enhanced. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
They did Avengers Ultimate Hero. That's multiplayer. But wouldn't be mistaken for single player.
Yeah, I don't think that's still being played much. I don't see people talking about that in Brian's circles. This is a good one because I feel like we're like one good question away.
You're one good question.
Who published Power World?
That's a good point. I thought of Power World. And it is still console exclusive, but it's Xbox, which would be the tricky thing. It was published by Pocket Pair Inc., which is, I'm assuming
he didn't say it wasn't Japan.
Yeah.
Pocket Pair is Japanese.
Yeah.
And it's a survival game, so it's not going to be listed as an RPG.
But you probably level up those pals as they get better guns.
Oh, but he said it had one genre. It's survival and monster taming. It's got two genres.
Is that correct? It only has one genre?
Listed on this Wikipedia, it only has one genre. To my what? That shocked me that we only listed one genre.
That would be a good one because people still talk about Power World. I mean, a lot of people who were like, "This is going to destroy Pokemon," aren't talking about it anymore, or even playing it. But I digress. I like to call it.
There was the other Pokemon Slayer. What was the other one?
That one was out on Steam. What one was that?
I played that.
I like that one. That was fun. I don't remember its name, but I have it.
Temtem.
Thank you, Chrono.
Has two genres. No, it has role playing though.
Tactical role playing.
It's on all the consoles too, but it is current gen. That's published by Humble Bundle though. San Fran.
Are they still around?
The publisher's side, I don't believe so. I think
they died, right?
Yeah, they closed down recently.
Yeah. So that's a loss.
We got to figure this out quick, Chris, because you might only have like 2 hours left to clean up your house.
I know.
He's a good husband. He's a good husband.
So we do know that it sold really well. It's still talked about, as you said. It's not listed as an RPG, but it has that elements, at least elements of it. Single player and multiplayer options.
I'm trying to think. Someone in the chat mentioned maybe it's Nintendo, and I'm like, that would be a trick, right? We're thinking of Sony.
I said published. Nintendo is a publisher.
Nintendo is not published.
On Nintendo hardware, sorry.
Oh, it could be Nintendo hardware.
Yeah. But I can't think of I'm pretty with it with Nintendo games, and I can't think of any.
I'm getting stuck. I don't want to waste questions now that we're down to 5, but I'm just
you're on. You have 6, so this next question will put you at 15.
Okay.
What's a really good question we could throw out there then?
You've already floated a few really good questions from my perspective.
That we just haven't asked.
Correct.
I don't remember what we floated, so
Rewind. Can we get a review?
Rewind.
Rewind the VOD. Challenge from the field.
Is it Chinese published?
It is Chinese published.
Okay, that could be a one that helps us.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. I was hoping you'd ask, because like that I think puts you hopefully on the path. You got 5 left.
Yeah, that's why. Oh, now I'm getting Chinese book publishers. I got to clarify that Google search. What do you guys think? I don't know much about NetEase's library.
I would think it'll be Tencent more than anybody else.
They did a Persona 5 game. I wish I could sort these by publish date. There's like 200 titles that show up in Wikipedia as China.
I can't imagine it's not one we know. Oh.
Okay.
What about NetEase?
Is there any reason it couldn't be Genshin?
Genshin is free to play, and we rolled free to play out.
Okay. Good call. Okay. Just because that would be a game that if he said it, we're like, oh, of course we all know Genshin. And I don't think it's platform exclusive.
Let me ask you guys. Maybe
what
it
about
could
Black
be
Myth Wukong?
I threw it out there a while ago.
Is there multiplayer to it?
It does not have multiplayer, no.
None.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, none.
Can't summon help. Okay.
No.
Okay.
But what about League of Legends, guys? Is that considered?
That's not single player.
Yeah, I was wondering if it had a single player component. I've never played it.
I've wanted to play it, but all my friends have warned me from doing that.
Oh,
they're like, it's very toxic. I stick with Pokemon Unite and this Dragon Ball MOBA they're making.
You think it's also a Chinese developer? Or is it just Chinese published?
It's a good question. I mean, that would help us narrow down more. We have 5 questions left, right?
That's
so
5.
Is it also a Chinese developer?
It is not.
So you tricky.
All right. So what have they backed?
I mean, we probably could have, because that could be anything.
Yeah.
And that could be any of the Chinese publishers. The big ones being NetEase and Tencent that have the money that to spend on other games developed even outside of the East too.
Okay. So I looked through Tencent's library and it didn't look promising. Doesn't mean it's not in there. But I didn't immediately see a title that like jumped out. NetEase looks like they develop a lot of their own stuff. Like I'm looking through theirs and like they are the developer on most of their games.
Or they have another studio that they bought.
Yeah.
So with Tencent, I'm going to guess this possibly falls under their umbrella. For instance, they've helped Activision. They've helped Ubisoft. Who else? I believe they had, or at least published, it looks like Call of Duty Mobile, maybe.
Yeah.
Even they've done. So, But it seems like they would be the one if I had to guess who the publisher would be.
Yeah, they have their finger in a lot of pies. Tencent.
A lot of studios.
Okay. See if I can get to it. Based in Shanghai, based in. Do they just outright own anything that's not? No. They own Level Infinite, who did PUBG Mobile, Tower of Fantasy.
Which I just looked at Tower of Fantasy because I'm like, I feel like that's what some people in Brian's circle could talk about.
Is it platform exclusive? It's free to play.
PS4, PS5 free to play,
It's
and
free to
it has
play.
RPG in the genre. So
This is tough, guys.
don't
He
you
took
You
the
guys
hard
know
one.
that?
Why don't
Did you guys know that Tencent owns Discord? I didn't know that.
They do. They own Tencent owns so many things.
they might own me. I don't know yet. I know.
I will send a bill to you. Did you get bitten by? Is that a dog cut?
Chris,
They have a non.
I'm going to say you're a bloodhound right now, dude. Like, don't give up.
Man, this is tough.
Not a Chinese dev.
But it's Tencent. If he's calling you a bloodhound, we're talking a lot about Tencent. Riot's a Western developer, right? Yes, and they're owned by Tencent, so they would be the publisher. I don't want to hear about. Just show me your games.
That's So that's League of Legends. What else have they put out? They also have a 40% stake in Epic, but Epic shows up as the publisher on those.
Because they've done some spin-offs of League of Legends too, and I go to the Wikipedia, I see nothing about games. Valorant, not it. No, yeah.
Okay. I don't see anything that would be mixed for single player and would be platform exclusive.
I'm going to classify that we haven't said it's platform exclusive. There is a console.
About to ask, yeah.
There is console exclusivity.
It's console exclusivity.
Okay.
Also, there is console exclusivity.
Yeah. Yes. As to what console, y'all haven't decided yet.
Oh boy.
Which is the one thing that could break us. I think the logic in my brain wants to say it's probably not Xbox, because the only one I can think about that they did get that's uncharacteristic for them is Pow World. Like that's just as a Xbox gamer, there's a lot of Eastern developed games and published games that I can't get my hands on. But this is a game that could be published by a Chinese publisher. It could be a Western developer.
Or, I mean, the developer could be anywhere.
Yeah. So we have 4 questions left, right?
Yes.
And one of them has to be the title. So
I knew this was going to be a challenge, but it's been an interesting road.
So whatever some more questions we could throw to whittle this down.
I called Chris a bloodhound, and he was talking about stuff.
He's talking about Tencent.
Yeah, Tencent and NetEase. There's a point where I had all of their games pulled up. So I have a lot of stuff open here. You want to know, like, I want it in like a spreadsheet. So like what I liked about the one that I had pulled up from NetEase is that it had developer listed.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at it.
Okay, games after 2015. Never heard of Sky. Never heard of Bloodstained. Never heard of Naraka.
Bloodstained's a good one, but that can't be it.
Yeah, Naraka actually was pretty big on Xbox. That was the one that was exclusive. Naraka Blade Point.
Diablo Immortal was not. That was Blizzard published, but NetEase was a developer, so it's the other way.
And Naraka is no longer exclusive to console, so it's everywhere.
I don't think it's NetEase. I think it's most likely Tencent.
So if I just Tencent,
It's definitely not Naraka because the developer is based in China. China.
And most of Tencent stuff is that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Are we sure it's in Tencent though? Because we kind of just
we're not.
So,
we're just going off that little hint that could be complete misdirection from Brian.
I'm not trying to misdirect anybody though.
Okay, he wants us to win.
I always like that. I like it when you win.
Always feels
Ring
good.
of Elysium. Man, Wukong felt like a good one.
It really did.
The multiplayer got it.
Yeah.
Is chat on there?
Chats.
What's chat saying here?
They're all I feel like kind of lost like us.
Yeah, y'all haven't. If y'all had a genre that would have helped out, I think whittling it down. If y'all had,
I mean, we could take a swing at something like that because it could.
Like, is there a shooting component or something, or something like that?
Yeah, is there a shooting component to it?
I would not define this as a shooting component kind of game, but there might be some kind of ranged aspects.
Okay, so it's not a shooter or third person type shooter.
3 questions, folks.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's likely melee based, sword, X, hammer, whatever. Yeah, earlier, my thought kind of drifted to Diablo. I'm like,
Blizzard published.
Yeah. So it couldn't be that. It's also not exclusive.
Is well, no, it's not an MMO. Because he would have said it wasn't single player.
Yeah. At this point, I'm just looking at Twitch games that are being streamed and their numbers to see if any ideas just come to me. But I mean, it might not be. We just ruled out. The way you rolled out shooter makes me think that there is an action component to this, and it's not like a card game or something like this. So I feel comfortable saying that it's something around that. Who makes Black Desert?
Well, it's not single player, right?
It is not. And it's got multiple genres to it.
I mean, I'm pulling up lists of games I've never heard of, so the fact that he thinks I've heard of it, he's pretty sure we're going to know it.
Which is going to be
recent. It's recent. I mean, last 10 years, 2015 or later.
Chat just brought up a good example. This would be something in his community they talk about too. V Rising, published by Stunlock Studios and Tencent Games. Stunlock Studios is owned by Tencent. It is you can play it single player. There is online component, and it is only on PlayStation 5 and PC.
What game?
V Rising.
Okay. What
genres? Let's see genres. It has more than one genre on Wikipedia, though. No, it doesn't. That's surprising. Same type of surprise I have when Brian was surprised, maybe. I think it's a good guess. It's published by a Tencent and a company Tencent owns. The only genre is survival. It is an isometric kind of action-oriented RPG. I've played it just by myself, but it's an online world, so there's multiplayer to it. In fact, Wikipedia says single player and multiplayer.
Okay.
And that's definitely a game I've seen Brian talk about and stream a few times.
You want to ask if it's a survival game? Is that the right way
let's
to
go for that. Let's go for that. Yeah.
Okay. Is it a survival game?
It is a survival game.
Oh boy.
Okay.
What was the game in question, Mark? Did you?
V Rising.
Okay.
It's okay. I only played it for a bit. Logged off and someone destroyed my castle, and I was just like, well, screw this. I did not know how to play this game. But yeah, there is ranged combat, but it's not shooting. Really, it's magic.
It fits everything else. So it's Windows and PS5. It's built in Unity. That's interesting. I mean, if it's not V Rising, I don't have a backup.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of V Rising. So
you want to just swing for it?
I have a backup if it's not V Rising.
So what is your backup?
It's the same criteria. It's also survival.
Okay.
Also has multiplayer. Enshrouded. Now that's German developed. So it's not
Enshrouded, and it's published by.
That's the problem. Who publishes it?
Okay.
King
Games.
I think he said. So where's King located?
That's also the developer. So if it's German developed, it'd be German.
And it's got RPG on the Wikipedia page.
It does.
Okay. Well,
if it's not V Rising, Brian has underestimated our ability to know what the game is. It's where I'm at. So
okay. Well, swing for it.
Is it V Rising?
It is V Rising.
Yay!
Yes. Oh man. And then we got to give it out to Dave with the virtual Stadia controller here, sir. Thank you. You may take this and do whatever you want with it within the legal reasons. And I was like, y'all were kind of in this. I was like, oh man, I was like, if y'all got the decade or something like that, I thought it would have been like quick. You're like, oh, but that was great. That was a way to pull it.
That was hard.
It went to the wire.
It went to the wire. It went all the way, and that's what's exciting and stuff. And also, like when I see like chat kind of going in on it, it's like, okay, yeah, here we go. For a while though, it was like I think there was about like a 10 question span that it was just like, oh man, like
we were burning.
Nope, no, and then we started going it. Now at some point, if YouTube ever lets me like right click people's names and gift members, I'll do that as a whole thing for the winner or something like that. But in the meantime, virtual Stadia controller for you, sir. It's imaginary.
Why would I want a virtual keyboard?
All right, guys. This camera. Umbra, where can people find you, sir?
Yes, sir. You guys can find me on Twitter, X Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite. You'll find me either way. Tuesdays on the Xbox Factor with Boom and Jamie Moran. That's at 12 o'clock Eastern. My show, The Fix, on Thursdays at 8 o'clock Eastern. I got to get you fellas to come by sometime. If you would be free. It's at 8 o'clock Eastern for that. And tonight on Fridays is the Infinite podcast. It's myself, Risky for the Biscuit, that Blue Number, aka Holly, and Spriggan, aka Dante Moody. I just give their real names because they give it out there too. And so that's also at 8 o'clock Eastern. Come by and check us out tonight. It should be fun. And man, thanks, Ginger, for having me, brother. I appreciate it. And it was a pleasure meeting you, Mark, and Chris.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, this camera. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch at Late to the Game and YouTube at Late to the Game. I have been slow with YouTube for the summer months just because of vacations and work being crazy, but I did just hit full partnership. So we're fully monetized. I've gotten like 10 cents. It's great. And I've been streaming on Twitch games like Towerborn, Space Marine 2, and Astrobot 2. So just check me out on Twitch or YouTube, and you'll see schedules and streams go up there.
Gaming kind of. Where can people
right here. I think I'm gonna play some Space Marine tonight. So,
did you pick that up?
I'm about to.
All right,
it's good. That's a game I want to play with someone. So if you're looking for co-op, let me know.
Okay.
I need to find more time for co-op in my life. We'll get there.
I always hesitate with Warhammer games because they're always a letdown. Is my general feeling towards them, and I know that can be a controversial opinion on its own, but just compared to actual Warhammer with throwing dice, I always feel like they always leave something left unturned in their ideas. I've heard the reception here has been phenomenal. So
wow. People seem to be enjoying it. Like I've considered picking it up. It runs on GeForce Now, and that's becoming my go-to requirement. Can I play this game, in more than one place?
I was thinking about giving it a go. I jumped into Helldivers and I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as it felt like people liked it so much they should get like a Helldivers face tattoo. And I didn't and I felt like, am I missing? Like I'm having fun, but I wasn't like, I should quit my job and play this tomorrow.
You weren't trying to fight for the democracy fun, having fun.
Okay. Like at the end of the night, I was like, that was great, but I had no trouble logging off.
Yeah. I loved Helldivers too. I thought that was really fun. But I picked up, by the way, Space Marines 1 Anniversary Edition on Steam. It's on sale right now if you guys are looking for it. $14.99. So I'm going to actually try that out. I need to get part 2 because I've seen it in action and it looks spectacular, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. Well, I'm still hoping I want to pick up Astrobot and sit down and play that with the kids. We've just been slammed with school and sports, and I'm like, all right, well, it's not going anywhere.
It's not coming to the Switch. Like
it
would come to and if it had to be the new Switch, right, when that releases, just because it looks like the kind of game that would be right up my wife's alley, and she crushes the Switch. So I think I would have to set the PS5 up out in the living room and be like, I bought this game for you. I don't know how to make that happen
for you.
Yeah.
If they did bring Astrobot, speaking of which, to the Nintendo, oh man, that's because the sales will skyrocket.
Oh yeah, that game will sell like hotcakes.
Yep.
Oh, who knows? We'll see what ends up happening in the long run. I know a lot of people are, at least on the PlayStation side, are skeptical of that future being real. I just, we've just seen every time Sony has made more of a move to be multi-platform, there is this visceral reaction. So I do feel like Sony is training people, but they have no rush. There's no, they don't need to do this. They're doing just fine.
I'm just saying everything I hear about it, I'm like, the only thing stopping it is that my wife would put more hours into it than me, and she is almost exclusively a Switch gamer now.
Yeah.
The Switch is just, it's too good.
Oh yeah.
She has no reason to tie herself to anything else.
As long as the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, I'm in. And if they want to pull a Nintendo, I'm probably going to be in because I'm that much of a simp for Nintendo. People are like, "Oh man, you're an Xbox guy. You're this guy." I was like, "No, you don't understand my deep rooted love for Nintendo." And then Nintendo. My frustration.
They're hard to get money.
Yeah, they are, and they also online. It's like, come on, can I play my online games? No. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll just go over here then. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in live. No, you're good. It's a fun little post little combo. We'll be back here actually Monday for that special episode. And then again, next Friday, if you guys like the shows, come hang out with us live, as Chad is always a lively place to kind of get some ideas and maybe even help squeeze out a victory of 20 questions. But until next time, take care.